Welcome to my Weekly Mixtape, a podcast that takes the classic mixtape approach to building a modern playlist. I'm your host, Brian Colburn. Joining me tonight as guest curators, that's right, with an S, is Jim and Lindsay Butler, the co-hosts of Children of the 80's. Jim and Lindsay, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having us, Brian. We're honored.
Thank you. We're so excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you, and now I get to start by asking you each my first-time guest question. And Lindsay, we'll start ladies first. What does the word mixtape mean to you?
Okay. I actually put a lot of thought into this because I had a feeling you might be going to ask me this, and I wanted to get it right because the mixtape has always meant so much to me. Started out mixtape and then went on to mix CD when I was in college. So this is what I came up with. It's a medium that allows me to revisit a time in my life and all the memories and emotions that go with it.
All right.
I could pull a tape out or a CD out that I've still got somewhere and pop it in, and I would instantly go back to that time in my life.
Well, Jim, same question to you.
Well, as a child of the 80s, Brian, you know that you would sit by the radio just waiting for the song that you wanted to come on, that you wanted to hit record, wait for the DJ to quit talking over the intro, and then hit record. So
and why did they always talk over the intro? Like they were plotting against us.
So to me, that's what I think of when I hear mixtape. You know, me trying to get the songs that I wanted to hear over and over and over again, all on the same tape.
Well, tonight, our episode is going to be a little bit of a different animal because even though we are talking 80s music and you guys are children of the 80s, so I think we're in the right wheelhouse for that one. Instead of taking that audio cassette and putting it into the boombox, we're actually going to be tuning our set-top boxes to MTV or Much Music if you're one of our friends listening in Canada, and talk about some of our favorite 80s music videos, because I'm going to drop a truth bomb here. Not only did I make mixtapes for audio growing up, but I did have a VHS tape that I set to the slow speed, so it was like 6 hours of space, and I used that as my video mixtape. So I would always look for certain videos and just add it to the quote-unquote mix VHS tape as time went along.
I love that.
So coming up with the songs that I wanted to bring to the table this evening was hard because I know I have at least 6 hours of those endless memories in my mind. Lindsay, starting with you, how hard was it for you to narrow down some of your choices tonight?
It was hard because I sat down and I ticked off 4 right out of the gate. And then, a day or two goes by and I'm like, and then another day or two goes by and I'm like, oh, it's hard. This is not easy because there's so many more that I could have come up with. We could do multiple episodes.
And that's usually the sign that we have a good topic at hand. So,
right.
Jim, same question to you.
Yeah, so I probably thought, Brian, of about 25 or 30 different videos that were just iconic to me. And trying to narrow it down was not easy. What do I go with? Do I go with a lot of early stuff from MTV because those are my first memories and those are the videos that probably meant the most to me? Or do I go with something that was groundbreaking, a video that nobody had ever seen before, anything like that? Or do I go with something that's a really good song and just an average video? And I tried to rule those out and get something that truly stuck in your memory. So I think I've got it all over the 80s here.
That was my approach because there's a lot of times where you can hear a song and the first thing you think about is the music video for it. And I'll use a reference that's outside of the 80s, but any OK Go song. Someone mentions the song title, I immediately think of the ridiculously creative video they came up with for that concept. Even going as far back as to their Here I Go Again with the Treadmills, one of the first viral videos to actually get out there. I thought of the songs I picked in terms of that, where you think of the song and the first place your mind goes is the music video. So with that, let's get down to business. Now tonight, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Lindsay, Jim, and I will be curating the ultimate 80s music videos mixtape. And instead of using the usual cassette deck approach, since we're talking music videos here, tonight our list is going to essentially take over the MTV or Much Music airwaves for an hour. So assume an average song length of 4 minutes, a couple of VJ talk-ups, and throw in some K-Tel commercials here and there. We are going to round table the panel until we've mapped out a dozen 80s music video classics for everybody tonight. At the end of the show, you can take our conversation to the next level by visiting the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com, where you can watch all of the videos we've discussed tonight via the embedded playlist. And if you like what you're hearing on the show, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a part of the Patreon Mixtaper community at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. There you'll find ad-free episodes of the show, gain immediate access to future My Weekly Mixtape episodes, hear exclusive bonus banter clips, chime in on upcoming show topics, become a future guest, and so much more. And a few folks in the Mixtaper community told us what songs they would kick off their hour of programming with, and here's what they had to say. Seeker checked in from Australia with a pair of choices from Twisted Sister, We're Not Gonna Take It and I Wanna Rock, both starring the band and Mark Metcalf riffing on his role from Animal House. Awesome, love them both. Jimmy Mitchell recalls the early days of MTV with his pick, the Bangles' Head Over Heels. And sticking with the Bangles, Chad LaMassa chimed in with their Walk Like an Egyptian video, saying he fell in love with Susanna Hoffs from that video. And believe it or not, there's actually a meme about the Walk Like an Egyptian video, which is just a still frame of her looking off camera slightly. And it reads, every guy over 45 knows this part of the video by heart. And I have to say, that's a pretty damn accurate meme.
I would agree.
Ben from the Too Vague podcast is going to go with something he calls a super obscure pick, Peter Bauman's Strangers in the Night, calling it a masterclass and making a video with the most 80s tropes and elements. Brandon from Virginia chimed in with Billy Squires' Rock Me Tonight, calling it the video that completely destroyed his career trajectory. So I think he went with more of the infamous video choice here. And finally, Sean Goff promises that he's not pandering to the My Weekly Mixtape host, but the first song that he couldn't wait to see the video play again, while also loving the song, was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' Don't Come Around Here No More. A video that's so good, I don't consider it pandering in the slightest, though I'm a bit biased being the host, so I digress. Once again, if you'd like to chime in for future My Weekly Mixtape episodes, join the Mixtaper community at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. And now, Lindsay, with all of those choices out in the atmosphere, what video are you kicking off our hour-long MTV block with?
Right out of the gate, I got to go with a strong one, Simply Irresistible, Robert Palmer.
Nice.
When you say 80s, one of the first things that I think about 80s music videos, I think about those female backup dancers and his backup musicians and their little dresses that they're wearing and their quirky little funky little dance that they're doing. That with his, I'm trying to think, I can't think of a word other than sexiness. Sorry, in his suit. It's the perfect combo.
It is one of the iconic videos. I feel like what he did was he went out and he got a bunch of fembots and he dressed them up all the same with the same hair, the same makeup and everything. And they're all dancing, close together. And the video switches back and forth between him singing and then all the ladies there, all the models that he has there. And so her picking that is a good way to start out the show.
But don't you think that in total, that video cost like $100 to make?
And considering it got 6.6 million streams on YouTube as of this recording, I think it's safe to say it's made its money back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've always felt like somebody at the label or Robert Palmer's management said, look, we love the concept to the Addicted to Love video. However, let's just get those pesky instruments out of the way, shoot the exact same video as Addicted to Love, and maybe toss in just a little bit more sex, because the Addicted to Love video, the dancers are behind him really poorly playing their instruments.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're not even in time. Their hands are nowhere near where the actual, and that's the music nerd in me. I wasn't supposed to be paying attention to the instruments, but I was a music nerd, so I was. Then when 1988's Heavy Nova came out and I was 11, and then they took away the instruments, basically my jaw was just smack on the ground watching the video, because it just kind of oozed that sexiness that was like, what am I watching?
And they don't even try to hide it. The chest shots and the butt shots, I mean, they are not trying to be subtle at all with what they're
No,
showing.
and one thing about 80s music videos, sex sells.
Yep, absolutely.
The song reached number 2 on the US Billboard Hot 100, number 1 on the Australia ARIA chart, number 44 on the UK singles chart, number 57 in West Germany, and number 6 in New Zealand, and it won the Grammy Award for Best Male Rock Vocal Performance that year. Love the pick. It's actually a top 3 Robert Palmer song for me, probably along with Addicted to Love and Sneakin' Sally Through the Alley. I think those 3 maybe. There might be another one that might push Addicted to Love in and out, but then again, you got Weird Al's Addicted to Spuds, so that one has to stay in. Anyway, I'm going off topic. Jim, what are you following up Simply Irresistible with?
So I mentioned earlier that I like the early and I like the weird. So I'm going to go back to 1983, and I am going to choose Men Without Hats, the safety dance.
Oh,
It's just the strangest video. It makes zero sense, right? You've got a guy dressed up in old Dark Ages kind of garb. He is traveling with a little person that's almost dressed up kind of like a jester. They're walking through this field. They see some strange, crazy lady who's dancing around for no reason, and they all decide to start following her as they go through a town, and it's almost like they're in like a Renaissance fair type thing. It makes zero sense with the song at all, but it's hilarious to me, and it cracks me up, and it's one of those early MTV memories for me.
Who's on acid here? Like, like whoever came up with this was on some kind of an acid trip, because there's no other way to explain what's going on.
this was one of those videos that just became synonymous with MTV. They could pretty much throw anything at the wall, and it could be spaghetti and ice cream and everything else. Whatever sticks becomes part of, and there were a lot of music videos that did that. It was just like, what the hell am I watching? But from a music perspective, I feel like the Safety Dance and the Human League's Don't You Want Me were both pivotal parts of my synth pop introduction in the 80s. So from a song perspective, I feel it's extremely important. It's from 1982's Rhythm of Youth, and the video currently has 6.1 million streams on YouTube as of this recording. It reached number 3 on the US Billboard Hot 100, number 11 on the Canada's Top Singles chart, and was a top 10 hit in the UK, Australia, Switzerland, Ireland, Norway, Sweden, and New Zealand, and was a number 1 hit in Denmark, Portugal, and South Africa. So worldwide smash here, video or not. But most importantly, in 1984, Weird Al parodied the song as the Brady Bunch on the In 3D album. So I think if it's gotten Weird Al's stamp of approval, because when you talk about 80s music videos, like the three of us discussed on your episode celebrating Weird Al, it's in the back of my head with every song pick tonight.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't even put that together when I chose that, but that's a good point, Brian.
All right. Well, to follow that up, when I think of iconic music videos of the 80s, this is the first one that comes to mind for me. And the funniest part about it that I've learned later in my nerd life is it wasn't the first music video for this song. And it wasn't the first recording of this song either. The song was originally recorded and released in the UK in 1984 and had a completely different music video. Basically, the band was performing against this blue backdrop, but the song didn't take off. So a year later, on 1985's Hunting High and Low, a-ha released the international version of Take On Me, which is the one that pretty much everybody knows, and brought in film director Steve Barron to create this absolute masterpiece of a music video that took that recognizable look. As soon as you say Take On Me, everybody knows what you're talking about. That's a technique called rotoscoping, and it combines the pencil sketch animation with the live action footage. And it took them 16 weeks to rotoscope 3,000 frames for this video. And if you want to put that into perspective, I have a filter on my Snapchat that I could take a picture of myself and in 5 seconds have the exact look from the Take On Me video. But 40 years ago, this video was on another level, and it has over 2 billion streams on YouTube alone. Reached #1 on the US Billboard Hot 100, as well as hitting that top spot in 11 other countries. And then because we're talking about the song, I have to point out the incredible version of Take On Me that the band released in 2017. There was an MTV Unplugged performance, and they did a version of this song. If you haven't heard it, please, please, please check it out. It's absolutely brilliant. They slow it down to a ballad, and it pulls on your heartstrings like you didn't think could possibly happen with Take On Me. And then obviously my ska punk fan has to come out. In the 90s, Real Big Fish's amazing ska punk cover of Take On Me has to be talked about tonight. But we're not here talking about 90s ska. We're talking about the music video. And as a kid, this hypnotized me over and over and over again. It was one of the first videos I had on that VHS tape.
So you sniped me on this one because this was definitely one of the ones that I had that I wanted to include. So I'm glad that you've chosen it. I think of a-ha's Take On Me as one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic video of the 80s. As I was going through preparing for this, trying to figure out how am I going to narrow my list down, I was watching, like I said, I watched 25 or 30 videos trying to narrow this down. And I had forgotten about the part about how they come back out of the drawing and he's banging his head against the wall and trying to figure it out. And she looks so worried. I had completely forgotten about that. So just going through, trying to just narrow it down and watching videos was a lot of fun for me leading up to this. So glad you picked that. And now I guess I got to pivot and go someplace else with my next pick.
So to me, the 80s, it was all about making music videos that really had nothing to do with the words to the song. So this one kind of bothers me a little bit. And the fact that what's going on with the woman in the diner and she goes into the magazine and she falls in love, that has nothing really to do with the music. So I had a hard time like getting on board with it, but I know it's iconic. I will accept it for that. But I have one question. What do the race car drivers have to do with anything?
I mean, I'm going to answer this from 7-year-old Brian and say race cars are awesome.
Okay. I'll give it to you.
All right, Lindsay. Well, with that, we are back to you now for track 4.
Okay. Really, this was easy for me. I didn't have to think at all about this one. Girls Just Want to Have Fun, Cyndi Lauper. And one of the reasons, I love Cyndi Lauper, but one of the reasons I picked this was I love the crossover between Cyndi Lauper and professional wrestling. Yes. And the fact that Lou Albano is in this video and plays her dad, it's a perfect music video.
This is the start of the MTV Rock and Wrestling connection, Brian. I know you're a wrestling fan from the 80s as well. And so her getting Lou Albano, I believe, and you probably know the story better than I do, but I believe they were on a plane ride together and just started talking and became friends, and she invited him to be on the video. And then he invited her into his world, and that started to grow Vince McMahon's empire because now all of a sudden he had a lot more eyes on his product as they're airing essentially pay-per-views on MTV hosted by Alan Hunter. And this video started all of that and really exploded WWF professional wrestling.
At the time, yeah, definitely WWF. I will recommend, if you have Netflix, the McMahon documentary that is on there. They actually cover this for a lot in the first episode. And without Cyndi Lauper, you might not have the WWE you have today. So it's an important part if you're a wrestling fan, believe it or not. But from 1983's She's So Unusual, it reached number 2 on the US Billboard Hot 100, but hit number 1 in Canada, Australia, and 8 other countries. The video currently has over 1.5 billion streams on YouTube, and we may or may not have included it in episode 104, the Ultimate Feel Good Songs playlist with my good friend Jay Sweet, because, you know, this song kind of just makes you feel good.
Indeed.
It's a fun song.
Amen to that. Jim, we are back to you for track 5.
I'm going to fast forward a couple of years here. And like I said, I like the weird, but this was certainly groundbreaking. I remember when this video came out, I wasn't even a fan of the song. I had heard the song on the radio and wasn't a huge fan, but then heard friends, because I was in middle school, talking about the video. And they're like, you got to go watch this video. And so I went to watch the video. And of course, that made me a fan of the song. And now I love Peter Gabriel's Hammer.
Yes.
Just the most iconic, strangest video I think I've ever seen. There's a lot going on here. I don't even know how I would begin to describe it. Hoping maybe you have the words to describe it, Brian, because to me, it's like a mind freak. You know, there's just so much going on, and Peter Gabriel sitting there singing, and there's stuff coming out of his ears and stuff coming out of his mouth and going around in circles. And it is animatronics. And I don't even know if animatronics is the right word for it.
It's actually a mix of claymation and stop animation.
Okay, thank you. Yes. It was genius. It was brilliant. And again, nothing to do with the song, right? And to me, the most iconic part that I remember is him looking as if he's riding on a roller coaster. When I first started thinking of iconic videos, and this was one that popped into my head, I thought of the roller coaster, and I had forgotten how much you had to go through before you got to the roller coaster portion of the song.
So I love Peter Gabriel. I like this song. I don't like this video.
Whoa.
Something about the effects that it like hurts my eyes. I can't focus on it. And I can't even really put it into words, but I can't stare at the screen and watch it. So, but it's such an odd video. Again, I wonder, what were they thinking when they were like, let's make a raw chicken dance? What were they thinking? I don't know.
I have to disagree, Lindsay. This, as a kid, I was 9 years old when this came out, and I had grown up with the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer specials around the holidays, the Christmas claymation specials. We had the California Raisins videos in the commercials with the claymation. So claymation, I always thought was really cool. This was the first time I saw it done in a rock aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a rock star using something that would be more aimed towards kids, but making it feel modern and fresh and adult-like, such as like what Jim said, that whole scene where his head is going through the roller coaster. If you watch that stop animation and you realize how many frames it took to complete that, it is so groundbreaking. And I think the absurdity of all of it is just the fact that what is happening, and again, this is a total guess here. It's as if you're getting bludgeoned with a sledgehammer because it's all just coming at you so fast and furious. It was from his 86 album, So, as far as I'm concerned, his masterpiece. It was number 1 on the Billboard US Hot 100 and Canada's singles chart, as well as number 4 in the UK and number 3 in Australia. And it was a top 10 hit in a dozen other countries. And it won 9 MTV Video Music Awards in 1987, which was the most awards a single video has ever won. Time magazine has been accredited saying it's the most played video on MTV of all time. and it was ranked MTV's #1 animated video of all time. So 9-year-old Brian has to approve this one. I've watched it several times on YouTube over the years, and so have a lot of people because it's got over 81 million streams on YouTube as of now.
Mm.
So along with the Aha video, Sledgehammer was on my VHS tape. And because it was one of the videos I watched the most, I have to follow this up exactly as it happened on that VHS tape. I had these two videos back to back, so we're in the same time frame. We're in 1986, 1987, in that era. And Sledgehammer would end, and you'd see this little pink room. Chevy Chase and Paul Simon would walk in and sit down. From 1986's Graceland, You Can Call Me Al. Reached number 23 on the Billboard US Hot 100, number 11 on the Canada Top Singles chart, number 2 in Australia, and was a top 10 hit in Belgium, Finland, Ireland, South Africa, the Netherlands, and New Zealand. Now, just like Aha's Take On Me, the video with Chevy Chase was not the first music video shot for You Can Call Me Al. The original, and I'll make sure I embed this on the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com, is a completely different concept. It's actually Paul performing on Saturday Night Live, but you're watching it through a video monitor as if you're in the control room. So it gives it this really strange Wayne's World public access TV look, and Paul was not a fan of it, and neither am I. So it was actually the brainchild, partly Lorne Michaels of Saturday Night Live, that came up with this concept for Chevy Chase and Paul Simon to do this video. And as simple of a concept that this video is, Chevy just cuts off Paul Simon and starts lip syncing. Paul looks at him surprised, walks off camera. He kind of sits back down for the chorus and just twiddles his thumbs, singing the "If You'll Be My Bodyguard," the background vocals. It was just a silly, fun video. The choreographed dance at the end, warts and all. It just works. It's fun. It's light. It's simple, but it's something you always remember. And as of right now, the video has 135 million streams on YouTube. So hopefully I'm not the only one that likes this track.
You are not. I like this too. This was such a simple video. Like you said, the camera's it's just a one-shot deal, right? The camera just sits there.
There's maybe a couple of cuts in the video, so I'm guessing it was a couple of cameras set up and they just shot it.
Yeah, and it's genius to have Chevy lip syncing all of Paul's parts, and then Paul kind of fiddling around outside and coming back in with different instruments and just lip sync in the background. I think it's genius. It's so simple to me that it's genius.
And that's why I went with it, because of the fact that a lot of the videos, they kept trying to go for bigger and more and bolder. And sometimes the ones that you remember are just like, hey, that was creative and fun. And at this time, Chevy Chase could do no wrong. So this was like a big deal in the mid 80s.
So this one was going to be on my list. So a little irritated with you that you beat me to it, but I don't blame you for doing that. Yeah, you guys, you've already said it, like the simplicity of it. I'm a huge Chevy Chase fan. So, of course, I love that he's in the video. I love that he's lip syncing. The one thing that always cracks me up is that a piccolo that Paul Simon comes out and plays a piccolo. Like, it's perfect for him. The size difference between Paul Simon and Chevy Chase, and he's got his little piccolo. I love it. It's perfect.
Well, with that, Lindsay, we are about to start the second half of our hour of MTV music videos. And my apologies for scooping you on Paul Simon, but I'm throwing it back to you for the next pick.
So this is a song where I always do think of the video first. So if I ever hear the song, the video and what plays in the video is what comes to mind. And that is "We Didn't Start the Fire" by Billy Joel. I love the fact that we go back and forth between the different scenes that are going on in a kitchen through different eras of time. And he's always in the background, kind of hanging out, sort of observing what's going on. And then we always did flash over to just the simplicity of him, sitting at that table with his sunglasses on, and then, just the really powerful pictures in the background that are flashing across the screen. It's probably, you guys might kick me off the podcast when I say this, but it might be the first Billy Joel song that I learned as a little kid.
It doesn't matter when you got introduced.
As
It's
long
just
as
that you got introduced.
Yeah. And so, of course, little Lens couldn't even comprehend really probably the ultimate meaning to this song, but it was different. And I had never heard anything quite like it. And it definitely got my attention.
All right, so Billy Joel had just some iconic videos in the 80s, right? Uptown Girl, Pressure, this. Billy Joel, Tom Petty, and then somebody else that I think I'm going to pick next are like my 3 favorite artists of all time. And so I love this video. I love the fact that he starts out, talking in the early 50s with his references, and it's like he's in Lucy and Ricky's apartment, right? And then as he moves on through the 60s, the kitchen kind of changes and it goes looking a little bit more hippie-ish, and then into the 70s and then eventually the 80s. And essentially the song's about, it's a history lesson, but it's also about things just keep going on, right? And human nature doesn't change. And so we can't stop it, right? We can't put out the fire. And so the video's phenomenal, but to me, the song's even better.
I cannot believe the 2 songs that you rattled off when you were talking about Billy Joel videos, because I actually had 2 Billy Joel videos in my list, and they were Uptown Girl and Pressure, because those are the first 2, but I'm showing my age because We Didn't Start the Fire was towards the latter half of the decade. Still love the video, but when I think 80s, We Didn't Start the Fire is so close to the end of the decade that sometimes I even equate it to early 90s, because 89 and 90 to me is 1-2 year block. Like that's the one blind spot I have on music. And it was probably my most developmental year in music, where I was choosing my musical path. And there are some albums I'm like, that was 89. I look, nope, that was 90. That was 90. Nope, that was 89. Stormfront was one of those. We had to learn every lyric to this song in 7th grade, and we had to do a test on this song. So there's a little bit of PTSD from that lesson, but I do respect the song now. When I hear it, though, sometimes I kind of go, oh, God, did I get that one right? It kind of comes back to me. But it reached number 1 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100, number 2 on the Canada Top Singles Chart, number 7 on the U.K. Singles Chart, number 2 on the Australia ARIA charts, and was a top 10 hit in West Germany, Australia, Belgium, Ireland, Switzerland, and New Zealand. The video has over 184 million streams on YouTube. And on episode 15, the Ultimate Billy Joel Playlist, I was blessed enough to have Liberty DeVito, longtime Billy Joel drummer, who played on We Didn't Start the Fire. Well, he played on everything from Turnstiles all the way up through the River of Dreams. And we curate the ultimate 20-song Billy Joel playlist. So love the pick, love the song, love the video. And now I am throwing it to Jim to follow that up.
All right. Well, I've got to pivot away from Billy Joel now, and I'm going to go with my other favorite artist from the 80s after Tom Petty and Billy Joel, and that is Huey Lewis and the News.
Nice.
I am doing it all for my baby.
Oh, okay.
Now, they had a bunch of iconic videos as well, but I really like this one because it's almost like a movie. It's almost like a quick little 5-minute movie before the music even starts. They break down. Huey's videos were always kind of goofy and silly, but they break down and the car falls on him and they can't pull him out and they just figure he's dead, so they leave him there for dead. And then they go into this scary kind of Dr. Frankenstein type mansion. And next thing you know, there's Huey Lewis dressed almost like Doc Brown from Back to the Future as the music kicks in and he starts singing, doing it all for my baby. I think it's just a video that a lot of people maybe forget about, but it's just so Huey. It's just so Huey Lewis in the News. You know, they just like to have fun. They didn't take anything seriously, and the video to me is iconic.
I love that the van, well, I don't love that the van falls on Huey, but I think it's funny that the van falls on Huey and the band's like, we want to go get something to eat. Let's go. And they leave him. But then also the funny part is someone comes along later and they have a handsaw and they try to they try to move the van to get him out and then they try to saw his legs off. I mean, just the absurdity. It just makes me laugh. And I love Huey Lewis. So great video.
I have to agree. This was when, in 1986, they were working off of sports money. So this is where the video concepts, they were allowed to spend a little bit more because they were a proven entity. Because of the fact that they were so iconic because of videos like If This Is It, that was the one that was in my list, where their heads are sticking up out of the sand. Not to be a promo whore for older episodes, but Bill Gibson, drummer for Huey Lewis and the News, was my guest on episode 23, where we crafted the ultimate Huey Lewis and the News playlist. And I actually got to talk to him about shooting some of their iconic videos. So really cool story in that one. The video currently has over 3 million streams on YouTube, and I'm talking about Doing It All for My Baby Again. The song reached number 6 on the Billboard US Hot 100, which I kind of thought was interesting, Jim, because you had said it was an oft forgotten about tune, but I guess in comparison to the Hip to Be Squares, the Jacob's Ladder, the Heart of Rock and Roll, Heart of Soul, yes, this one kind of falls down, but it was a top 10 hit. And it hit number 30 on the Canada singles chart, number 93 in Australia. And it was a video that continued to push the musical boundaries for the band. And I'll be honest, they're one of my favorites of the 80s as well. Jim, I feel like you and I are kind of like musical kindred spirits here because we are kind of on the same page with some of these.
Absolutely. Love Huey, all his videos, but this one is the one that sticks out to me the most.
Well, I'm going to go back to my VHS mixtape for this one. And this was one of those songs where I found a song that I liked. I recorded the video. I showed it to my father. And he says, "Oh, you want to hear the original?" And my father pulls out Toys in the Attic and puts on the original Walk This Way. But in 1986, for Raising Hell, the amazing Rick Rubin decided to pull that exact same album out in front of Run DMC, load up Walk This Way, let them freestyle over it, and then push them to record something with it. The band was originally against it. Run DMC was not in on this song at first. They brought in Joe Perry, who recorded the guitar and bass. They brought in Steven Tyler to do the vocals. The band still wasn't sold on it. They didn't want to release it as a single, but the label pushed, and they recorded this little music video, and it exploded. Even though Run DMC wasn't sure about releasing it, it hit number 4 on the US Billboard Hot 100, number 6 in Canada, number 1 in New Zealand, number 9 in Australia, number 8 in the UK, and was a top 10 hit in 6 other countries. VH1 ranked the collaboration number 4 on their list of the 100 greatest hip-hop songs, and the video currently has 133 million streams on YouTube. But most importantly, this song was a piece of the puzzle that saved Aerosmith as a band. Aerosmith had a rough start to the 80s. Raising Hell into Permanent Vacation changed this band's trajectory forever. And it also made Run DMC a household name. So I feel like there's an importance to this video. Hip hop was around and it was respected. But Run DMC with this song, I'm not going to say single-handedly, but along with a lot of other hip-hop songs that were crossing over and mixing rock and hip-hop together, the Beastie Boys and stuff like that, made hip-hop mainstream. And I feel like this is an important song. In the video, when Steven Tyler smashes through the wall, and I don't know, that might have been symbolic for something, but regardless, the dance at the end, I have mimicked that dance. I mean, my kids have the Just Dance video game. And if you play with the controllers, I forgot what year has it, but there is Aerosmith and Run DMC's Walk This Way, and you have to do the dance with the 3 steps and the kick at the end of the video, and it is so much friggin' fun, just like the dance at the end of You Can Call Me Al. Very similar.
Oh, wow. That's a comparison I wasn't expecting. Oh, Brian, good job.
The shuffle, shuffle kick dance. It was totally an 80s thing.
Was a thing.
I'm glad you brought this up because I would have said, and I would defer to you because I feel like you know music better than I, but I would have said that this is the song that made hip hop mainstream, or at least led to it becoming mainstream. And I remember this video. I actually was an Aerosmith fan prior to this video. So I'm a little bit older than you. And my parents played Aerosmith a lot as a kid. My best friend up the street actually had Aerosmith's greatest hits, so he would bring that tape down and we would listen to it. And so I knew Walk This Way before I ever knew who Run DMC was. But when you listen to just Walk This Way, it's the perfect song to turn into rap because he's almost kind of rapping as he goes because he's spitting out the lyrics so fast. And so I thought it was genius to put those two together. But like you said, this saved Aerosmith's career and it was a really cool video.
I think having them perform on, either side of the wall and then they break the wall. I mean, I think that's the perfect visual of what they did for their respective genres and music.
That wall was the boundaries that they broke through. And as symbolic as it is, it's just a badass moment on top of it.
Little Lynn's in Atlanta, Georgia, with older parents, I wouldn't have known Run DMC otherwise. I just wouldn't have. That's just not something, on my radar. But because of that video, I was introduced to them and it goes from there.
All right. Well, with that, we are back to you to follow up with your last choice of the evening. What do you got?
Okay. I'm taking it there. Parents just don't understand Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. I picked this one because it makes me laugh. Start to finish, it's funny to me from his, what looks like to me is Huey, Dewey, and Louie sheets on his bed, to the clothes that his mom makes him wear, to the girl he picks up, turns out she's 12. Like the whole thing is just a hoot to me. And, Fresh Prince in the, late 80s, early 90s. Couldn't beat him.
I remember the first time that I saw this video, I was over at a friend's house, a real good friend's house, and we would always be outside doing something. We were hardly ever inside, but for whatever reason, this time we were inside. We turn on MTV, and this video's on. And I'm like, what is this? And to me, this was the first, even though we had Run DMC, we had the Beastie Boys. I hadn't started listening to NWA yet, but this was the first rapper to actually speak to me as a kid, right? He's talking about how parents just don't understand. He's talking about how your parents embarrass you because they go buy you clothes that you don't want to wear to school. Most of the time it's for monetary reasons, right? And that's what it seemed like with his parents. And so to me, I could totally relate. I thought the graffiti and the artwork on the wall was really cool. Just very simple, just white walls with artwork on it. I thought that was really cool. Him deciding to take his parents' Porsche out while they're out of town, right? Even though he's not 16 or he doesn't have a license yet. We can all relate to just kids just making stupid decisions, especially as teenage boys. I feel like we get dumber before we get smarter as we go through life. But yeah, it's an iconic video for the late 80s.
Oh, by all means. That backdrop that he has with all the graffiti on it, so colorful. And they shot several different videos using that. The Girls Ain't Nothing But Trouble video used some of it. Even the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is in that for a moment. There was even not a music video, but a commercial. Remember when artists used to do 1-900 numbers? They had 1-900-909-Jeff, and it was a hip hop song. And you could call that number, and the commercial was filmed on that set. So it was almost like their lair at the time. But I'll make sure I embed that commercial over on the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com so you could check that one out. But back to Parents Just Don't Understand. I loved this song, 1988's He's the DJ, I'm the Rapper. The song reached number 12 on the US Billboard Hot 100, number 28 on the Canada Top Singles Chart, number 87 in the UK, and number 49 in Australia. Won a Grammy Award for Best Rap Performance at the 1989 Grammys, and it was one of the 2 rap songs to get that award before they discontinued it. The other one, Young MC's Bust a Move. So back-to-back ones there. Another great video, actually, now that I think about it. Parents Just Don't Understand ranked number 96 on VH1's 100 Greatest Songs of Hip Hop, and the video currently has over 15 million streams on YouTube. I'm actually surprised. I thought that number was a little low, to be perfectly honest.
Even a little low.
Feels it. Yeah.
All right. Well, Jim, we are back to you now for your last pick of the night.
All right, I am going to pivot away from the hip hop here and go with something a little bit heavier that would actually become even heavier on a cover in the early 2000s. And I know that's one of your favorites, Brian, because I think we've talked about it over X or Twitter or Facebook or something. And I am going to go with the video that I always think of with puppets, and that is Genesis Land of Confusion.
Nice.
This video sends me to a land of confusion.
So it wasn't just a clever title.
Yeah, right?
You got the puppets of, what you can only assume to be Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan at the beginning, and then I love the Phil Collins puppet. I mean, you talk about just like when people draw caricatures of people, that's what these puppets were like, right? They were drawing caricatures of people. I love the Phil Collins puppet. There's a whole lot of famous people in there. It was going by so fast when I was watching this, trying to narrow stuff down that I can't even remember all the famous people there, but I believe I saw Margaret Thatcher. But the Phil Collins puppet and the Ronald Reagan puppet, to me, are the 2 that stick out the most.
Puppets when you're talking about Phil Collins, because if you watch the band performance video, Phil Collins is in front of the microphone singing, but if you look very carefully in the background, he pops up on drums and just kind of waves his arm around and then drops back down. So there's actually 2 Phil Collins puppets on stage.
That is so right. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, he's back there. He's in the background acting like Animal from the Muppets.
I'm pretty sure I saw Dolly Parton in one scene. You didn't see Dolly?
Well, there's that whole spoofing towards the end of the Do They Know It's Christmas and We Are the World video.
Yes,
so you had, I know there was a Bruce Springsteen, a Madonna, and a Michael Jackson puppet in there as well. So, I mean, if you talk about budgets, this one had to have one because those puppets were probably not cheap to make.
That's what I would think. And I'm totally drawing a blank, but at the end of the video, one of you I know can help me out. The puppet that's supposed to be, I believe, Ronald Reagan, he hits a button.
He was supposed to hit the button for nurse, and he hit the button for nuke.
That's it. That makes me laugh every time.
Yeah, that was definitely part of the Cold War era type music video stuff, but done only, like, I don't know if every band could have gotten away with that video, but for some reason Genesis could. And the song is just incredible. Like you said, the Disturbed cover, 10,000 Fists album. I absolutely love it. From 1986's Invisible Touch, it reached number 4 on the Billboard US Hot 100, number 8 on the Canada Top Singles Chart, number 14 on the UK Singles Chart, number 21 in Australia, among others. And it won the short-lived Grammy Award for Best Concept Music Video, but lost the MTV Music Award to another video we talked about this evening. Lindsay, you're not going to be happy about this, but Sledgehammer.
Oh.
And this video currently has, again, a low number, I think, 14 million streams on YouTube. And when we say 14 million being low, we're talking about the fact that we're comparing it to the 2 billion of Take On Me. 14 million seems like pennies at that point.
Exactly.
All right, so I get to take us home tonight and close out the evening with a music video. And there is one music video that stuck in my mind more than any other music video from the 80s. It was seeing this music video that made me come up with the idea of doing this episode. It was the music video that made me hide under every blanket and pillow on our couch the first time I saw it, from the Getaway all the way to the end with the eyeballs. 1982, Michael Jackson's Thriller. Reached number 4 on the US Billboard Hot 100, number 3 on the Canada Top Singles Chart, number 10 on the UK Singles Chart, number 4 in Australia, and number 1 in Argentina, Spain, Belgium, France, and Portugal. This video currently has over 1 billion streams on YouTube. So again, putting it into comparison with some of those other ones we just mentioned. And once again, just like, and I think it's a theme among my videos for this evening. Not fully, because Take On Me doesn't have a dance per se at the end, but You Could Call Me Al has a dance at the end. Walk This Way has a dance at the end. And Thriller has a dance at the end. And that is one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic 80s dance. When the zombies do the arms up and they, oh my God, I was horrified as a child. But then my parents made me watch the making of it. And I think in a weird way, it kind of fueled my love of video and multimedia, because I already had a music bug in me, but I'm also a video multimedia guy, and Thriller was one of those things that just made me enthralled with the concept, because here I was pretty much crying watching it. And then when I see it's all fake and you go back and watch it again, it's like, wow, that's mind-blowing. And the choreography in it's just incredible. So Thriller to close us out for the night.
This was one that had to be picked, right? And having listened to your show enough, I always go, oh my gosh, are they going to leave this song out? Are they going to I can't believe they're going to leave this song out. And then you always come around to it. So I kind of figured you might go here, which is why I left it. I don't know if you remember, Brian, because you're a little bit younger than me, but this was like an event.
Yes.
It was a buildup to the release of the video for like months and months. They kept talking about it. And so they aired it, and then immediately afterwards aired the making of Michael Jackson's Thriller. And we got our VCR out. We taped the video in its entirety, and then we taped the making of Michael Jackson's Thriller. And I'm telling you, I watched that thing anywhere from 25 to 50 times growing up, because we were fascinated with Michael Jackson, right? He was like Taylor Swift is now. And B, I wanted to learn the dance, right? And I was just fascinated. I had already seen American Werewolf in London, right? With John Landis and Rick Baker doing the makeup and the special effects. And so I was already fascinated with the turning of a human into a werewolf. And then it being Michael Jackson just made it was like taking it and going to the 10th power. And so to me, this was an event. This was something that I watched over and over and over again. I still love the video. I could still go back and watch the making of Thriller now. I've probably forgotten most of the dance moves, but I'm telling you, 10 years old, I knew all of the dance moves.
I was just going to ask you, even though this is an audio-only podcast, if you would get up and show us what you remembered.
This blew this blew her mind. The fact that it was a music video, but it was kind of a small film, I just never, it was beyond anything that I could ever come up with or picture that this was even a possibility. I loved it. It kind of scared me half to death. And just at the end, when I think, oh, okay, everything's okay. And then we get that last shot of his scary, creepy eyes. And that's what sticks with you as the video ends. I love it. Somebody had to pick it. And I'm so glad you did.
Well, there you have it, folks. Our 1 hour block of 1980s MTV music videos, which consists of Robert Palmer's Simply Irresistible, Men Without Hats, The Safety Dance, Aha's Take On Me, Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun, Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer, Paul Simon's You Can Call Me Al, Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire, Huey Lewis in the News, Doing It All for My Baby, Aerosmith and Run DMC's Walk This Way, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince's Parents Just Don't Understand, Genesis's Land of Confusion, and Michael Jackson's Thriller. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to see all the videos we've discussed through the video playlist embedded on the episode page. Jim and Lindsay, why don't you tell listeners a little bit about Children of the 80s and where they can connect with you both?
Yeah, we're a podcast that we talk about everything that was important to us when we were kids growing up and things that we look back on now with fond memories. Even if it wasn't important to us, even if we didn't like it then, we now look back on it with fond memories because the further you get away from childhood, it seems like the more you want to go back there. So you can find us anywhere. We're on all the major platforms, Spotify, Apple, podcasts. We're at Children of the 80s. You can find us on Twitter, X, Facebook, Threads at Children of _80s.
Well, Jim and Lindsay, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you both for joining me tonight on My Weekly Mixtape. And I look forward to doing a volume 2 on this because there are way too many songs that we have not talked about yet.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us. It's been a real honor.
Thank you. Yeah, you could definitely get a couple more episodes together of the good 80s videos.
Well, remember, you can find My Weekly Mixtape on almost all the social media haunts at My Weekly Mixtape. You can also head to myweeklymixtape.com to check out the full catalog of My Weekly Mixtape episodes. And if you like what you're hearing on the show, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. There you can find ad-free episodes of the show, get early access to future My Weekly Mixtape episodes, chime in on upcoming topics, become a future guest, and so much more. Once again, that's patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. That's all for this week. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, enjoy the tunes as well as the music videos that go along with them. See you next time.